Why Donald J. Trump simply cannot afford to lose. Now, at first glance, that sounds like a simple political statement. But when you strip away the noise and look at the deeper layers, the legal, financial, psychological, cultural, and geopolitical realities, you discover something far more dramatic. For Trump, losing is not just losing power, it is potentially losing everything. Everything he built, everything he fought for, everything he believes defines his legacy. And that's why this topic is so important. This isn't about one election. This is about a man whose personal, legal, and financial survival is completely tied to political victory. This video is not pro-Trump. It's not anti-Trump. It's an exploration of the truth behind what's at stake, and why the pressure surrounding this election is unlike anything we've seen in modern American politics. Let's start with the biggest and most immediate reason Trump can't afford to lose: legal exposure. Over the past decade, Trump has become one of the most legally vulnerable public figures in the world. He has been entangled in federal investigations, state investigations, civil suits, criminal cases, business fraud cases, tax-related inquiries, defamation lawsuits, election-related cases, special counsel investigations, and dozens of private lawsuits. The list is enormous. Now, here's the key point. As long as Trump remains in political power or remains a candidate with a real chance, many of these cases slow down, pause, get complicated, or become politically sensitive. Judges delay. Prosecutors hesitate. Politicians intervene. Witnesses avoid involvement. Media attention creates pressure. But the moment Trump loses, everything changes. No more political shield. A president or major party nominee has certain protections: political influence, public support, negotiating power, media leverage, legal team, funding, institutional hesitation to act. Lose that influence and all these protections vanish. Every paused case reactivates. Cases involving business fraud, inflated property valuations, hush money payments, tax misrepresentations, the Trump Organization. January 6th related issues, interference accusations, classified documents mishandling, all become far more dangerous. Witnesses become bold. People who stayed silent out of fear or loyalty may now testify. Prosecutors feel safer to act. No more accusations of political prosecution. No more worries about influencing elections. Judges move faster. Court schedules speed up dramatically once there's no election pressure. Media scrutiny intensifies. Instead of political coverage, all stories focus on investigations. For Trump personally, this is catastrophic. Why? Because unlike most politicians, Trump's legal exposure is personal, not just political. Many cases target him directly, not his administration, not his party, him, the individual. And some of these cases could result in multi-million-dollar fines, seizure of assets, restrictions on business operations, loss of real estate, bans from managing companies, criminal convictions, potential jail time. For a former president, that is unprecedented. For Trump, it is dangerous, and he knows it. That's why losing is not an option. The next massive reason Trump can't afford to lose is financial. People often assume Trump is super rich and insulated from consequences. But in reality, Trump's financial empire is far more fragile than people realize. His wealth is heavily tied to perception. Trump's brand value depends on being seen as a winner, projecting strength, maintaining political influence, being in the spotlight, having millions who trust his name. A political loss shatters the foundation of his business model. Banks and lenders re-evaluate him. After his previous political defeat, major banks cut ties with him. Losing again would accelerate this. Banks fear instability, negative publicity, legal consequences, collapsed asset values. Trump already faced enormous financial penalties in New York. A loss makes future judgments far more likely and more costly. Investors pull away. Real estate depends on confidence. Brand licensing depends on reputation, and political defeat undermines both. Business partners protect themselves. Many partners tolerated his controversies because he remained powerful. Without power, the benefits shrink and risks grow. Legal expenses grow exponentially. Trump has tens of millions in ongoing legal fees. These expand dramatically when he loses the protection of office. Fundraising weakens. When Trump wins, donations explode. When he loses, enthusiasm and money slow down. And here's a critical truth. Trump's financial health and political success are deeply interconnected. If one fails, the other collapses. This is why losing the presidency isn't just disappointing, it's dangerous for his entire financial structure. Trump thinks in terms of history, legacy, and personal mythology. Throughout his life, he has repeated one story. Trump is a winner. Trump always wins. Trump never loses. This narrative is vital to him. A loss destroys that mythology. Losing turns him from a movement leader into a political cautionary tale. Instead of being the man who reshaped America, he risks being remembered as the man who couldn't hold on to power. History books change dramatically. If he wins again, he becomes a dominant historical figure, influencing the next 20 to 30 years. If he loses again, he becomes a one-term president surrounded by scandals and defeats. His legacy becomes vulnerable to criticism. Without power, he can't control the narrative anymore. Supporters lose morale. Republicans move on. Pundits declare his movement finished. And for someone like Trump, that's unacceptable. He has always seen himself as larger than life, an icon, a symbol of strength, a breaker of norms. Losing threatens to erase that. Trump isn't just a candidate. He is the center of an entire political movement. MAGA is built on loyalty, identity, cultural values, anti-establishment energy, a belief that Trump is the chosen fighter. If Trump loses, the movement fractures. Some supporters will blame the system, saying the election was unfair. Some will blame other Republicans, claiming they didn't support Trump enough. Some will blame Trump himself for not adapting or expanding his base. This creates chaos inside the Republican Party. Trump isn't just fighting for power. He's fighting to remain the heart of the movement he created. If he loses, others like Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, or new figures could rise. And Trump cannot allow that. Without the movement, Trump loses influence. Without influence, he loses political protection. Without protection, he loses financially and legally. Everything is connected. The next layer is global. Believe it or not, Trump winning or losing affects the entire world. Countries like Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Hungary, North Korea, Brazil all care deeply about Trump's political future. Some see him as a strategic advantage. Others see him as a threat. Others see him as unpredictable. If Trump loses, global alliances shift, trade deals change, climate agreements restart, foreign policy strategies flip, military cooperation realigns. If Trump wins, the entire world adjusts accordingly. Some nations panic, others celebrate. Geopolitics is all about predictability and power, and Trump represents a major break from traditional American foreign policy. Losing the election would change global power dynamics instantly. Trump cares about this because it affects his historical significance. It affects how he's remembered internationally. It affects global business relationships. It affects the world order he wants to shape. His influence on the world stage evaporates if he's not in power. And for a man who craves global attention, that's unacceptable. Trump has positioned himself at the center of America's cultural conflicts. He is the loudest voice on immigration, guns, free speech, wokeness, transgender rights, abortion laws, teachers and schools, law enforcement, media bias, religious freedom. His supporters and his critics both see him as the main symbol in these debates. If he loses, cultural power shifts to the other side. Laws change, courts change, public institutions shift direction, social norms evolve. For Trump and his supporters, losing means the country's cultural transformation moves against them. This isn't just political, it's emotional, it's ideological. It's identity-based. And if Trump loses, his cultural movement loses its leader and its momentum. Let's talk about Trump's psychology. For decades, Trump has built one image. Trump is the ultimate winner. Trump is unstoppable. Trump is a champion. Everything is branded: Trump Tower, Trump University, Trump Airlines, Trump Golf, Trump Casino, Trump Hotels. His entire identity is built on the idea of dominance. Now imagine what a major, public, undeniable defeat means for someone like that. It's not just embarrassing, it's psychologically devastating. It means he must face humiliation. He must face critics saying, "I told you so." He must face the loss of the winner identity. He must face the collapse of his myth. He must face irrelevance. For Trump, irrelevance is worse than losing money, worse than losing business, worse than losing elections. Irrelevance is death. That's why he must fight until the last second. Here is perhaps the most important point of all. If Trump loses, he could lose his personal freedom. This isn't theory. This isn't speculation. This is the reality of massive legal exposure. Without the presidency, Prosecutors move courts, move investigations, move lawyers, become aggressive judges, become strict, immunity disappears. If Trump loses, he could face trials with no political protection. He could face sentencing without political pressure. He could face financial penalties he cannot avoid. He could face jail time, something unheard of for a former US president. Trump knows this. His lawyers know this. His inner circle knows this. Even his critics know this. This is not a normal election. For Trump, winning is survival. Losing is possibly catastrophic. To understand why he can't lose, you must also understand what happens if he wins. If Trump wins, legal cases slow down or disappear, prosecutors hesitate, judges delay rulings, fundraising skyrockets. MAGA strengthens, he reshapes courts for decades, he rewrites regulatory agencies, he controls foreign policy, he becomes nearly untouchable. Winning gives him immense power and historical dominance. Winning means rewriting the story of his life, from controversial to unstoppable, from chaotic to legendary, from embattled to victorious. That's why Trump must win. There is no acceptable alternative. So when we say Trump can't afford to lose, we're not talking about politics. We're talking about his legal survival, his financial survival, his personal identity, his historical legacy, his movement's loyalty, his geopolitical influence, his cultural dominance, and potentially his personal freedom. For any other politician, losing an election means going home, writing a book, teaching at a university, doing speeches. For Donald Trump, losing could be the beginning of the end. That's why he fights. That's why he refuses defeat. That's why everything is so intense. That's why every speech is dramatic. That's why every rally feels like a moment in history. Because it is. This is not just a political contest. It is for Trump a battle for his future, his legacy, and perhaps even his liberty. And whether you support him or oppose him, one thing is undeniable. Donald Trump truly cannot afford to lose.